Final Destination 3, a 2006 American supernatural horror film directed by James Wong. A standalone sequel to Final Destination 2, and it's the third installment in the Final Destination film series. The film follows character Wendy and her friends who visit an amusement park where they end up riding a big roller coaster. When Wendy has a premonition of the roller coaster crashing, she manages to get off the ride along with some of her friends, but of course, it's not long before death comes calling. It's a great entry into the Final Destination franchise, and some even say it's the best one out of the 5 movies. So get yourselves comfy and let's take a look at 10 moments from Final Destination 3. Number 10. The roller coaster premonition. If you're no stranger to the Final Destination movies, then you will know that the movies always begin with a huge tragic accident, and in this movie they take things up a gear. Wendy and her friends are in an amusement park and they are getting ready to ride a big scary roller coaster. The tension build up during this scene is amazing. Wendy is kind of already freaking out about going on this roller coaster and keeps getting an uneasy feeling. We learn in this movie that Wendy is a little bit of a control freak, so I suppose the feeling of being out of control on a roller coaster is her worst nightmare. When they are about to ride the roller coaster, Wendy ends up sitting with her best friend's boyfriend Kevin towards the back, and her best friend rides with Wendy's boyfriend at the front. As soon as the workers press the button, the roller coaster is off and there's no going back at this point. The roller coaster climbs up a steep hill, which, by the way, takes ages to get to the top. But once it does get to the top, the ride begins and everything seems fine for a little bit. That is until one of the characters, Frankie, drops his video camera, which the roller coaster then crashes into, causing the roller coaster cart to start derailing and losing its wheels. It's a huge moment of panic and everyone's safety belts start popping up. Some people fall off the ride just before the roller coaster stops at an upside down loop. A few more people die, and then Wendy and Kevin manage to rock the coaster back, causing it to start riding backwards, but Kevin ends up having his whole body chopped in half when he slams into a loose pole. And Wendy then comes flying off the cart when it completely derails, and just as she's about to hit the floor, she comes back to reality, where she has this awful premonition while sitting on this very roller coaster, and the workers are about to push the button. But Wendy screams out to them and causes a huge panic, and Wendy and some of her friends end up getting off the ride. Now, security try to calm her down, but the workers end up pushing the button for the remaining riders, and that's when Wendy realizes that her boyfriend and her best friend are still on the ride, and of course the roller coaster ends up crashing. It's a brilliant build-up scene which sets the movie up beautifully. Number 9. The photos. Something that I really liked in this movie was the photos that give you a clue on how the surviving characters in the movie are going to die. Wendy was taking these photos of everyone at the amusement park for graduation, and after the roller coaster crash, she bravely connects her camera up to her computer to take a look at the photos. When she's browsing, she notices that the photo that she took of her dead boyfriend with the roller coaster in the background, it somehow predicted how he was going to die. So she browses through the rest of the photos, and there are so many clues on how these people are going to end up dying. I thought it was a very clever moment in the movie, and it not only kept Wendy and Kevin guessing, but also the audience. Number 8. Cremated at the Sunbeds. Best friends Ashley and Ashlyn head off to the Sunbeds together. They are both perceived in this movie as a little bit dipsy and superficial. However, they are both completely harmless characters, and they even invite Wendy along. However, Wendy declined and she ended up going back to take a look at the photos, and it's at this point Wendy looks at Ashley and Ashlyn's photo, and she notices that there seems to be some sort of orange glow over over their faces. Ashley and Aisling go into the sunbedroom while the man in charge goes out the back on his phone. He tells them not to take in their drinks, but Ashley ignores his warning. So they both undress and hop onto the sunbeds, and they start their tan. However, Ashley's drink starts to leak onto the generator, which causes the temperature of the sunbeds to rise. When things start to get a little bit too hot for the girls, a shelf ends up falling down and falling in between the sunbeds, which means that the girls cannot open their very hot sunbeds. They are locked and they are starting to cook alive. It's a brutal scene as we see them slowly burning and cooking alive, and the scene goes on for quite some time. We see boils and burns appearing all over their bodies, and eventually the sunbeds both burst into flames, burning the girls alive. Number 7. Freak accident at the drive-in. After Ashley and Aisling's funeral, Kevin takes Wendy to get some food after she almost collapses. They head over to a drive-thru where they end up talking about the photos from the night of the roller coaster crash. What they don't realise is that behind them in the distance, a truck is coming down the hill and it doesn't have a driver in the vehicle. When Wendy eventually notices, they try to get the attention on the car behind them, but they are way too busy having an argument. But when they do realise, it's way too late for Kevin and Wendy to drive out. So Kevin ends up kicking out his windscreen and they both jump out of the car just before the truck hits them. However, there is a car in front of them with a male passenger who isn't so lucky when Kevin's engine comes flying out and hits the person in the head. They see a chain on the floor and they know who this belongs to, Frankie. And when they get up to check, Frankie's head is impaled to the engine. It's a really gruesome and gory scene, but I bloody love it. Number 6. Head smash. So after Frankie's death, Wendy and Kevin now know that death is coming for them and they are friends. So they head over to the gym to warn Lewis of what's about to happen, but of course Lewis thinks it's a load of garbage. They try explaining to him that this has happened before, but he is having none of it, and while all this is happening, Wendy is looking around to see if there's anything that resembles anything in Lewis's photo. The scene starts building up tension and you just know any minute something is about to happen. And while everyone in the gym is going crazy with the muscle pumps, the two swords in the frame behind Lewis come flying down, but they do end up missing him. However, they did cut through some wires. Lewis ends up seeing this as proof that death is not coming for him, and he ends up shouting out, "Fuck death." And as he pulls his weights, two of them end up slamming into his head due to those wires being cut. And Lewis's head pretty much explodes with the force of the weights. Number 5. ERIN'S death scene. Once again, we have the classic scene where characters Erin and Ian refuse to believe Wendy and Kevin with tragic consequences. So Wendy and Kevin turn up at Ian and Erin's place of work, which is in a warehouse, and Wendy and Kevin are trying to convince them that death is coming for them, and pretty soon. In the background, we see a number of accidents that are about to happen, with the tension building and building, and you just know that something bad is about to happen, and when it does happen, it's gonna be painful. And it really is, because when a lot of materials come crashing down on top of everyone, Erin gets thrown back, where she ends up landing against a nail gun. And this nail gun starts firing nails through the back of her head and out through her face. And Ian is just there watching his girlfriend die in front of him. I always hated the moment where Erin lets off a little sad shriek just before she dies. You genuinely feel this girl's pain. And of course, Ian then lets out a huge freak out at Wendy and Kevin for being right all along. Number 4. Chaos at the Carnival. The time has come for both Wendy and Kevin, time for them to check their photos because they are pretty much next. However, Wendy ends up having a flashback and realizes that her sister Julie was also on the roller coaster with one of her friends in the premonition. So Wendy phones Kevin to keep an eye on her until she gets there, as Kevin is working on the security. It's not long before chaos erupts when some silly kids set off a firecracker behind a horse. And of course the horse ends up freaking out and escapes from its pen, and it starts running through the carnival at everyone. As the horse is running, a piece of rope with metal gets attached to the horse's leg, and Julie ends up on the other end, being dragged along the ground by this horse. And just when it looked like Julie is about to meet her maker, Kevin manages to cut the rope just in time. But that's not the end of it. Number 3, Perry's death. Just as Julie is saved, Wendy tells Julie that she needs to know who was sitting with her on the roller coaster before she got off that night. It's at this moment one of Julie's friends, Perry, has a panicked look on her face, and just as Wendy says that whoever this person is, they are next, Perry ends up being impaled by a large flag right through her body. Number 2, Ian's death. After Perry's death, it's not long before Ian arrives in all the chaos at the festival. Wendy starts to panic because she thinks that Ian has something to do with her death after looking at her photo. And Ian does have revenge on his mind because he is blaming Wendy for the death of his girlfriend Erin. Ian ends up giving off this big massive speech until a load of unlit fireworks are set off and they come flying towards him, but they do end up missing him. All of a sudden, a huge heavy sign right above him comes crashing down and crushes him instantly, leaving half of his body on the side of the ground with his arms shaking and twitching. They really did up the gory factor in the death scenes in this movie, and I bloody love it. So surely now that death has skipped Wendy, it's all over, right? Wrong. Before we get to number 1, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We currently upload new videos every week and we are really looking to grow this channel, so make sure to hit that notification bell as well. Number 1, the train crash. Some time has passed since the dramatic night of the carnival, and Wendy is on a train with some of her new friends. She starts to get a little bit freaked out when she hears a familiar song being played. But when they try to get off the train, Wendy's sister Julie comes onto the train. Also on the train is Kevin. So they all have a little bit of a reunion, but then all of a sudden, the lights on the train start to flicker, and then the train actually derails and all hell breaks loose. Kevin ends up going out a window and ends up getting squashed to death, while Julie is hit by a post that comes flying through the train. Wendy is then thrown out of the train, and it's a really good scene. It kind of reminded me of that train crash in the 1993 movie Speed. Anyway, Wendy is on the ground and she is surrounded by the wreckage and all of the dead bodies. But all of a sudden, Wendy hears a noise of another train coming, and the train comes down right towards her before she comes back to Earth. Yep, she just had another premonition, but this time there is nothing she can do to stop it. And that was 10 moments from Final Destination 3. So guys, what did you think of my list? Do any of you think that Final Destination 3 is the best one out of the 5 movies? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well thank you all for sticking around and watching my video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I'll see you again very soon.